It is time for Coffee on the Coast Book Banter. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this afternoon, Tina Prigge. I have my cup of coffee. I'm so excited because Therese Horstgetter is joining us again from the Manitowoc Public Library. We're going to have a little book banter. Therese, this is one of my all-time favorite days of the month. Welcome back.
It is. It's fun. It's wonderful always to talk about books.
Does it change the way
Yep.
you does it change the way you read books now a little bit at all? Just thinking like, am I going to share this one?
Once in a while it does because I tend to really like mysteries especially. So I don't want to only share that. So I try to, watch for some in between that I think will be well received.
And viewers, in case you haven't seen this before, Therese is so good about talking about a book, but really without any spoilers. And so, like when we're talking about a mystery, for example, you're great at setting it up and piquing interest without giving anything away. That's masterful.
Thank you.
Like, for example, last time we did this, you recommended a book called Elevation by Stephen King. And
Yes.
Stephen King, right, historically has like this sort of creepy, right?
Mhm.
And so I was a little nervous reading it. I thought, is this going to get scary? And it's funny because as I kept reading, I kept thinking, okay, how is this going to get? But it was just a lovely read. You know, it's
It
still a little
was.
strange, but not strange in a
Right.
creepy kind of way.
Right. It was very touching, I thought, with some of the things that happened along the way, the people that needed each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So you've got a new batch for us this month. Let's start off. You said this is kind of an old, more classic. And it even says, had Charles Dickens been around to turn his talents to fictionalizing the classic Crippen murder case, the result might have been close to this superb, multifaceted novel. What a great recommendation.
Yes, it is. This was a unique one. I can't even tell you why I picked it up in the first place. I read it probably 5 or 6 years ago, but it's one that I would still recommend to people. And the really short version of it would be that this is based on a true story. You can look up the information on the person that it was written about, one of the main characters, and there's a murder involved, and then trying to catch the murderer. And just the fact that this takes place, just what you can see on the cover, people are on ships headed for North America. And so the way I think of it as two car ferries racing each other, there can only be so much speed. There aren't phones, there aren't, ways to communicate out there, that the one needs to get there ahead of the other, because if the other one gets there, they're going to be gone forever. They're probably never going to find that person again. And so you would think there would not be much tension, but I really, really enjoyed this book. So it's not exactly so much a mystery, more suspense, that you are really waiting to see how this is going to turn out.
And interesting. So, and then it's set like mid-Atlantic Ocean.
Yes. Well, it starts out, I'm trying to think, Scotland Yard Inspector is the one on one of the ships, chasing the person that they believe is responsible for a murder.
Gotcha. And so
yes,
just to be clear, that is not the Lake Michigan car ferry that we see.
It is not. But that's how I picture it in my head, kind of, because, it just is. But yeah, so there's a 2-week voyage. So that's about the time that this takes place over.
Interesting. And what does Crippen refer to? Like it says the Crippen murder case. Is that a
Crippen
place?
is Dr. Hawley Crippen, who is an actual person that you can look up and see what was involved here with the murder case. So he is, yeah. And this author also wrote The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which I think a lot of people were familiar with, or are familiar with. And I think that was a very well-liked book. And I don't know if that's what brought me to this one or not, but But yes, this is really a great read. A little bit different, like I said, than a regular mystery, just a good suspense.
I do think that the cover is intriguing, especially here on the coolest coast. I think it speaks to us, right? That
Yep,
sort of lake or ocean view. And
right.
I kind of like this style of novel. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it, where
Yeah.
you get that insight into what it was like to cross
Mhm.
the ocean on such an epic
Yeah.
voyage.
And you don't even think of it as, "Oh, they didn't have their phones," because they didn't have that ability to have them in the first place. It's not like, "Oh, I left my phone at home, what am I gonna do?" They are having to just work around a lot of not knowing that these things could be there in the future. But yeah, so it's really, I love the setting, I love the characters, it's just good book.
What's the approximate era?
Um, 1910.
1910.
Mhm.
Fascinating. I can't
Yep,
wait to check it out.
yep.
Viewers, if you've read this book or are planning to read this book, let us know your thoughts. Okay, so Therese, I know that you love a good suspense. Tell us about Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough.
Okay, Insomnia is about, a woman named Emma. She has a high-powered legal career, 2 beautiful young daughters, and a stay-at-home husband. And the daughters are just about getting to that age where they're gonna both be in school soon, and, so there might be some things changing, in their marriage and their family life, but, for years, uh, I should backtrack. When she was 5, she and her sister were put into foster care because of mental and health issues with her mother. This happened around the time her mother was 40, and she began having issues with sleeping and just different things happening. And something bad enough happened that the girls were removed, and now Emma is on the verge of turning 40, and she all of a sudden is not able to sleep. The same thing that her mother had going on before they were taken away from her. So she's noticing things like missing pieces of a day, things like that start happening. So it's like, does this really run in the family? Um, and there are other things, without, of course, spoilers, other things going on that, is she responsible for? Is she seeing this and it's not really happening? So quite a few things there going on. Her sister plays a part in it, and um, it's just, yeah, lots of things. And are they real or not? And are they headed towards that?
Okay, so I have not read this book, and where my mind goes is she must be worried, right? That if she's starting to have these issues, she might lose her daughters.
Right.
And my prediction, although I haven't read it, and you don't have to confirm if this is any kind of a spoiler, I think her sister and her husband are somehow in cahoots, maybe having an affair or something, and setting her up to believe these things to. Am I going the right way? No.
I do recall that happening in a book somewhere along the way. I cannot reject or confirm those thoughts.
And like I said, I did not read it, so I'm not saying that that's what the
Yep.
book is about, but
Yeah. It'll keep
awesome.
you going, and a lot to think about in between there.
So
And
it says on the book, the twistiest, most gripping thriller since Paula Hawkins' The Girl on the Train, an absolute must read for suspense fans. So does this book give you insomnia?
um it it didn't give me insomnia, but I already have that issue once in a while. I think a lot of us do, where all of a sudden it's you wake up at midnight and you don't go back to sleep for, a good chunk of the night or the rest of the night, sometimes later. But I think a lot of us go through that. And so, um, yeah, I can't say it gave me that, but then you are thinking, huh, is this something else? I'm well past the age of 40, but
Right, right. Cool. Okay, so that's a suspense recommendation for this month. Now let's check out this book. First of all, let's just appreciate the art on the cover of The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulet. It's just so beautiful.
It is. It is a beautiful cover.
And so it's called The Firekeeper's Daughter, and it says, "Keep the secret, live the lie, earn your truth." Tell us more.
Firekeeper's Daughter, we actually chose this book purposely because we have the display on our first floor, the Away from Home, about Native Americans. And that is touched upon in this book. And it's an easy read, but it is close to 500 pages long, and it is a young adult book. But I can say that it especially read like a young adult book. You can sometimes tell, but this was a well-loved book by numerous people that supported using it, and people that attended the book discussion we had. So,
I just want to say, Tim Gadzinski messaged in that Therese picked some amazing covers this month. And I'm wondering, Tim, are you messaging us right now from Portugal? Because if so, Therese, that means our show is international today. That's pretty cool.
hi,
So,
Tim.
hi, Tim. Tim, do
Yes,
they
I
have
see that
crickets in
he
Portugal?
said I see that he said he could only speak Portuguese now, so he couldn't understand what we were saying.
But he did confirm that he is in Portugal, so
Yes,
that is very
yes,
cool to know that we
yeah,
are airing internationally. But
nice.
back to the Firekeeper's Daughter.
Yes, so
So
an 18-year-old woman named Donis um, is hoping to make a fresh start heading off to college, and she is um, part of, well, her hometown and the Ojibwe, I'm thinking I'm saying it right, reservation nearby. I never realized people needed to be enrolled in with a certain tribe in order to completely be a part of it, have the benefits of it, with the total inclusion in it. And so there was a bit of learning in here definitely for me. And she decides to stay home for a year because her one grandmother has taken ill, her mother has to take care of her, and she also had an uncle that recently passed away. And then there are some newcomers to town that she gets involved with and finds out that there's an FBI investigation going on regarding drugs in their area, which are becoming a huge, huge part. And so she stays home. It talks about the different things that she goes through, and the people who are enrolled, the differences that you can see sometimes, and still remarks about Indians. And there's one spot where someone makes the remark about she's not like the other ones. I never did get a lot of that she's centered on remarks by people, but you can just get a feeling of things in what she says. There's a lot of drama, of course, in here. I would say more than other things. But she has two grandmothers. One is in the nursing home following her illness, and she is the more, I would say, sedate of the two grandmothers. And the other grandmother that she has follows all of the teachings of her Native American tribe. And there's just a lot of things that are kind of funny with her too, that she will have these different treatments for things, which I won't mention to ruin it for anybody. I think it's fun to find them. And she's been, as they said, she's more out there. She has been married 5 times, twice to the same guy and once to his brother.
oh
And
my gosh.
so
Oh my gosh.
it's just, yeah, she is one of the, I guess, not quirkier, but yeah, just a little different characters in the book. but um, it is what Donis goes through in this time that she stays there, what she learns, what she helps with, the people she cares about. It was a very good book.
Is it a novel or is it based on a true story?
This is a novel, and actually, the author is she's an enrolled member of a Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. And so she's a storyteller, it says, who writes about her community in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and a former director of the Office of Indian Education. So she had a lot of background. The one thing that is a little throwing when you start reading the book is there will be Native American words used. You kind of need to just get the gist of things by the rest of the sentence or paragraph. And
Oh,
because they don't just always stop and say, or in parentheses, put it, in English. So you can get the feel of it, what the word means. And some things are used throughout, some just pop up here and there.
oh, interesting. So there's even an opportunity to tap into a little bit of that language.
A little
And
bit.
the fact that it's kind of set in the UP, that's really our backyard. I mean, so this
Mm-hmm.
is really
Yep.
relevant. I'm so super excited to read this book, and
Yes.
look at all of the awards on this cover.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's very worthwhile read. People might pick it up and go, I can't, just I know sometimes people are, if it's a bulky book, you might not want to get into it or depending, but put it on your list if you're not ready for it now. It was a good book.
Nice. Full disclosure, I did not make it through War and Peace.
Oh,
So
I never attempted that.
well, kind of like you were saying with, some of the Native American words peppered through
Yeah.
in War and Peace, not to diverge too much off topic here, but there were so many long, like Russian names, but then
Oh,
based on relationship, the names would kind of change depending on who was speaking. I just had a
right.
hard time keeping it all straight.
I have given up on a book. And I know sometimes they're translated or just where they're set. And sometimes if it is too much of either they have a lot of names that are the same, or like you said, where they are from another country and those names are just, it gets a little frustrating to me sometimes if I'm, yeah, tangling with that. And I've
Yeah.
given up on a book once in a while for that reason. But
Yeah, darn. And I just want to say, since Tim was watching, I want to say obrigado, Tim, for watching all the way from Portugal. All right. So let's talk about this book. Another awesome piece of cover art. This is
yes.
Come Fly the World by Julia Cook. It's the jet age story of the women of Pan Am. Cool. Tell us more.
Well, this one I am reading in pieces. I love to have a nonfiction book that you can set aside, pick up when you have time again in between novels. And this I am really enjoying. It, of course, is what you mentioned that the book is basically about. It begins with there's a small town girl who is deciding to attempt to be a stewardess rather than her science major that she went to college for and sit in a lab all day. She thinks this will be much more exciting. And then another woman that's featured, and granted, I'm about a third of the way through the book, but she is one of the relatively few Black stewardesses that there were at the time. But I know that we all or a lot of people probably know about, they'll say stewardesses had to have a college degree, had to weigh this much, had to be this age, had to be single. Well, this does spell all of that out, but then had to have a college degree, speak two languages, and that they kind of expected them to not age out, but to end up finding a husband in this job and leave, that they didn't have to say, time for you to go, you're now 34 or whatever. So just that one statement was, yeah, kind of surprising and I guess not surprising as to when it was set. So this follows Pan Am between 1966 and 75. Had to be a certain height, certain weight, yep. But the thing that was amazing is it talks about these flights that went into Vietnam for R&R weekends or weeks for um, the men that were serving there, and then having to bring them back. And it says they were very dangerous flights because they were coming into where there was a war going on.
Yeah.
And so that I am just partway through that, but it's already amazing some of the comments that are being made by the people involved in the book about how much action they saw on what was technically not a war. I don't know if the right word is vehicle, but excuse me, but that they had that to deal with. But I also found it amazing the women who chose to live overseas in between their flights, and what they got to have with that. And it said usually they had a housekeeper. They paid low rent for places that because they were gone so much. And it was just, I thought, oh, I can see why a lot of women were attracted to this. And they actually started out with men instead of women being
Oh,
on the planes and
interesting.
taking care of the passengers. Yep.
It must have
So
felt like freedom for those women in that
yeah,
time in history.
yeah, yeah. If you weren't tied down like the one said, she never thought she'd be accepted and she still went for it. It's like, I'm young enough, I can spend my time in a lab later on. This would be exciting.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah,
It sounds like a great read. And I
yep,
also had no idea that there was commercial style flights that would have been servicing the
right.
troops, right?
Yep,
So that's
yep.
interesting. That
Yeah,
must have been
I didn't
terrifying.
realize that either. And I'm, like I said, partway through that, but still more to come. And yeah, very interesting.
Okay, so Therese, did Tim fly Pan Am to Portugal?
I doubt it, but I don't know whatever happened to them. I have to wait till the book is done to know.
But I think
But
it doesn't exist anymore,
no, I
right?
don't think so. Maybe he found it though.
Okay, that's Come Fly the World by Julia Cook. Okay, we've got one more book, and Therese said that this is her favorite. When you said favorite, did you mean out of today's selection or favorite of all?
Out of today's, but I would also put it in a good high number in favorites too.
Oh
I
my
really
gosh.
enjoyed it. I love the um I just when I saw the title, I thought, "Oh, this has to be good. I hope it's good." Just yeah, all the thoughts I had in my head. And I loved it. It actually is women turning into dragons and imagining that this could have happened. And it's set back, um, let's see, 1955, and it's called The Mass Dragoning, where it says like 600,000 women on one day became dragons. And we are talking the full fire breathing, um,
Scaly long
says
tail.
scales, and actually found out they were bulletproof. Um, but, and what happens to them, to their families, to um, just people that they know, because even though this happened to so many, in a small town, it could have been like one. And so, what happens to that person? Do they stay there? Do they leave? Um, did they do this on purpose? Did it just happen to people? There's a lot going into it, and it is a very emotional book. And then there are some parts that I especially loved that mention the number of, so figure 1955 and how women were treated by a lot of bosses and husbands, and they had different places in the world at that time and a bit of different treatment. And not to get too political here, but it does talk about the number of bosses and the number of um, I'm trying to think of what the word is. Oh, they had um, more than 6,000 husbands found themselves devoured and others burned severely. Um, Also among the dead, many obstetricians, pastors, um, and there was one that I liked. Oh, 27 entire parent-teacher um, associations. So that was just one little part that I absolutely loved. That you can picture the people. There are more things, more, positions and things, of course, that happen. But I just thought that was rather amazing. That yes, you can see people that you may have wanted to take something out on when you had the power to, and
Mhm.
that mention is a small part. It's a much more emotional book about what happens when some women turn to dragons and some don't, and some who are stopped from turning into dragons.
Oh,
So there's all different reasons, things that happen. So I just thought it was an amazing book. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm super intrigued. And it almost sounds like perhaps it's maybe allegorical about, what women really were experiencing and finding their own
Right.
power. Maybe when they were dragons is kind of a euphemistic way to say like finding their own power.
Yes. Yep.
Interesting.
I think there is a lot of that. That is a main part of the book. Yes, definitely. And but yeah, it's like they said in here, on April 25th, 1955, the world changed, American families changed, and my own family changed forever, is the woman who is at the heart of the book, the girl who is. And her family is the main family in the book throughout. And I just I know it's a very weird sounding book and might put people off just the thought of this happening, but um, I just thought it was wonderful. I loved it.
It sounds like there's a lot of inspiration in it.
Mhm. There is. There
When is
is.
it from? When was this one released?
This is current. It's
Okay.
it's a fairly new book.
Okay, cool. Have you
Yeah.
read anything else by Kelly Barnhill, the author?
No, I know that I've heard the title, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, but I have not read that.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm super intrigued by this one. Therese, these are some awesome recommendations.
I hope so.
I just I just want to review them. So we talked about Crippen, a novel by John Boyne. We talked about Insomnia, a novel by Sarah Pinborough. The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulay. Come Fly the World by Julia Cook. This one's nonfiction. And then When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. Awesome.
I think it's a nice range of things too.
Yeah. And so we
Yes.
always say, never judge a book by its cover, but I really love the covers of all of the selections that
Oh,
you had
I
today.
do too, and I think Come Fly the World is the one that I was just walking by one of the shelving units and I saw it and picked it up. So
Nice.
that's definitely, yeah,
Awesome.
cover
Therese,
brought me into that one.
thank you so much for joining me here today to have this little bit of book banter on Coffee on the
Thanks.
Coast. I've got
Thanks for
some reading
having me
ahead of
again.
me. Yeah. Viewers, if you read any of these books, we'd love to know your thoughts. And if you have any recommendations, let us know. All right, Therese, take care. We'll see you next time on Coffee on the Coast.